There are towns in America where time didn't just slow down. It got drunk, fell asleep in a beanbag chair, and never woke up. Right now, in 2024, while you're watching this on a device more powerful than what NASA used to land on the moon, there are U.S. towns still using rotary phones, still blasting 8-tracks, still running general stores like it's 1974, and Nixon's about to go on TV. I'm not talking about tourist traps. I'm talking real places, functioning economies, working post offices, parades with live marching bands and no irony. And get this, over 29 million Americans still live in small towns and rural communities where broadband access is a joke, chain stores never arrived, and the average house price is under $200,000. That's not nostalgia. That's a national time warp. Some of these places didn't modernize because they couldn't. Others, they flat out refused. Either way, they're still here, and they are wild. So today we're counting down 10 U.S. towns that look like the 70s hit pause, and nobody ever hit play again. You're about to see diners that still serve Jell-O, gas stations with analog pumps, and entire towns where the biggest crime is forgetting someone's name at church. Don't blink. These places are real, and they're weirder, cheaper, and maybe a little smarter than whatever's happening in your HOA right now. Let's go. Number 10. Peacher, Oklahoma. If the 1970s had a dark side, Peacher, Oklahoma would be its haunted postcard. This town didn't just press pause, it got trapped inside an EPA horror film reel and never quite escaped. Back in the day, Peacher was a booming mining town, pulling lead and zinc from the earth like the country depended on it. Because it did. World War II? Thank Peacher for the bullets. At its peak, it had 20,000 residents, a drive-in, 3 greasy diners, and more muscle cars than school buses. But by the late 1970s, the mines dried up, and the toxic leftovers stayed behind. Think piles of mine waste taller than the high school, and groundwater with more lead than a paint factory. Now here's the insane part. People stayed, even after the town was declared a Superfund site, even after sinkholes swallowed sidewalks and kids tested positive for lead poisoning. For years, a skeleton crew of locals lived like it was still 1976, driving beat-up El Caminos past crumbling bowling alleys and hardware stores with fading signs advertising 8-track players. In 2009, the federal government offered buyouts to the last residents. Most left. A few didn't. As of 2024, Peacher is officially a ghost town, but not the kind you see in westerns, more like a frozen frame of a town in mourning. An environmental time capsule. You can still walk through it, illegally of course, and see sun-bleached tricycles in front yards, vending machines that probably sold tab, and a gas station that last updated its prices before Reagan. The only sounds? Wind through. Broken windows and maybe a far-off, inexplicable radio static. Local legend says some squatters still live there, off-grid, with CB radios and rotisserie chicken from generators. It's not charming. It's not quirky. It's terrifyingly retro. Think Stranger Things meets Chernobyl, but with more denim and fewer demogorgons. No gift shops, no food trucks, just a full stop on time itself. Would you visit a town that's literally too toxic for a Starbucks? Drop a yes or hard pass in the comments. Peacher didn't just pause the 1970s. It got stuck inside them, and then everyone else left. This isn't nostalgia. It's time travel with consequences. And yet, somehow, it still looks like a place you could fill up your Camaro, light a Marlboro, and drive away with Kansas blasting on the stereo. Number 9. Ely, Nevada. Buried deep in the high desert of eastern Nevada, Ely looks like what would happen if someone took a 1970s Greyhound bus stop and expanded it into a whole town, and then forgot to tell it the rest of the world changed. Ely's not just retro. It's so stubbornly mid-century that it has 2 diners with wood-paneled jukeboxes and exactly 0 Uber drivers. And no, that's not a joke. According to the 2024 Department of Labor Statistics, Ely has one of the lowest rates of app-based employment in the western U.S. You're not door-dashing anything here. You are walking to the pizza place that hasn't updated its menu since Nixon. Population? Around 4,000, if you count dogs. Median home price? $174,000, which in today's market is practically monopoly money. And crime? Basically non-existent. The most scandalous thing that's happened recently was a local debate about replacing the bowling alley carpet, which, by the way, still smells like Aquanet and nacho cheese. This is a town where the radio station still plays Casey Kasem countdowns from vinyl, and the hardware store owner might also be the mayor, the mailman, and your mechanic. Now let's talk aesthetics. Ely has buildings that haven't been painted since the Carter administration, not because they're abandoned, because they're historic. You want a pharmacy with handwritten prescription slips? Got it. You want a movie theater that only shows one film a week, and it better be PG-13 or lower? Ely delivers. The air smells like dry sagebrush, gasoline, and someone's dad grilling brats in the back of a Ford Ranchero. But here's the wild part. People like it this way. A 2023 town survey showed that 61% of residents preferred Ely remain as it was. Not grow, not innovate, just stay. The town motto might as well be, progress, no thanks, we're full. It's like everyone got together in 1978, voted on the aesthetic, and then slammed the town charter shut. You won't find kombucha, but you will find chili dogs for $1.75 and a gas pump that still takes cash only. Ely isn't performing nostalgia. It is nostalgia, printed on thermal paper and fading in the Nevada sun. And yet it's alive. Just don't expect a QR code menu, or cell service, or anything newer than a rotary phone. Trust me, this place could be a movie set, if only Hollywood could find a director weird enough to touch it. Number 8. Bellows Falls, Vermont. If New England had a forgotten attic filled with rotary phones, handmade quilts, and one very stubborn town, it would be Bellows Falls. Sitting on the Connecticut River like it's waiting for the Beatles to reunite, this Vermont village looks less like a place where people live and more like a particularly enthusiastic model train set. And I mean that in the best way. Cobblestone streets, check. Brick mill buildings, still in use. A train station that hasn't updated its benches since the Ford Pinto? You bet. Bellows Falls didn't just pause in the 70s, it laminated the decade and stuck it in a snow globe. Population hovers around 3,000. But you'd swear it was less if you walk through downtown on a Tuesday. Half the storefronts are still family-owned businesses. There's a barber shop with a hand-painted sign and a soda fountain that still serves egg creams. Not because it's kitschy, because nobody told them to stop. Median home price? Around $215,000. Utilities? Dirt cheap. Internet? Spotty at best. And if you're looking for nightlife, I hope you enjoy square dancing in a rec center or sitting on a porch listening to AM radio. But here's the kicker. Bellows Falls has culture. There's a 1920s opera house that still shows black and white films on weekends. There's a local zine printed by hand on a letterpress. There's even a hardware store that sells cassette tapes because some people still use them. A 2024 tourism study ranked Bellows Falls as one of Vermont's most authentically historic towns, which is polite speak for, please don't touch anything. Even the train still stops here. Not a fancy Amtrak. A diesel beast with a whistle that shakes your coffee. And yes, people still wave at it. Because Bellows Falls isn't just pretending it's 1971, it never noticed we left. And maybe that's the best part. The locals aren't trying to escape time. They're living like time never mattered. And somehow, in this strange little frost-covered place, it doesn't. Would you move to a town where the most advanced technology is a wind-up radio? Drop a yes max if this sounds like heaven, or a hard no if you'd rather keep your Wi-Fi in Starbucks. Because Bellows Falls is proof that the 70s never died. They just moved to Vermont and started a cheese co-op. Number 7. Jerome, Arizona. Welcome to Jerome, a town so weirdly retro that even ghosts refuse to update their wardrobe. Sitting 5,000 feet up on Cleopatra Hill, Jerome was once the third largest town in Arizona. Mining made it rich, then cursed. In the 70s, after the copper dried up, the town should have vanished. Instead, it just shifted. Hippies moved in, then artists, then people who use the word vibe seriously. Now, Jerome is 450 people strong, and every single one of them is at least part-time stuck in 1974. You won't find fast food here, or chain stores. What you will find is a haunted hotel, 3 psychic shops, and a record store that swears it hasn't changed its inventory since Fleetwood Mac was new. Median home price? Around $490,000? And yes, you read that right. Time costs money. Want to rent instead? Hope you like studio apartments with wood paneling and lime green refrigerators. Jerome is not cheap nostalgia. It's expensive weirdness. The streets? Steep enough to give your Fitbit a panic attack. Parking? Forget it. Crime? Basically non-existent unless you count public loitering by men in vintage ponchos. The job market is entirely tourism and artisan craft. If you're not selling sage bundles, copper jewelry, or handmade goat soap, good luck. And yet, people line up to move here. Why? Because Jerome isn't acting retro. It just is. The town museum has exhibits that haven't changed since Nixon. The bars serve drinks named after dead miners. And the mayor allegedly owns a typewriter repair business, which, yes, still gets clients. 2024. Census data showed Jerome's population is shrinking, but homeownership is rising. That means one thing: people come here to stay, to drop out, to live in a world where disco never fully died and everyone's closet smells like sandalwood. This isn't nostalgia, it's a full-blown time loop, and nobody's in a rush to leave. Picture this. You step out of your 1969 Airstream, grab a coffee from a shop that only accepts cash, and head to the town art walk where someone's selling VHS copies of Logan's Run. If that's your dream, Jerome might be your spirit animal. If not, maybe skip the next town. Because that one? It makes Jerome look downright modern. Number 6. Colquitt, Georgia. In Colquitt, Georgia, the 1970s didn't die. They got a county grant, opened a theater, and put on a play about themselves. Welcome to the only official Georgia-certified city of the arts, where half the buildings haven't changed since Carter's inauguration. And that's the point. Colquitt is not just old school, it's aggressively wholesome. Downtown? Painted murals everywhere. Front porches? Still in use. Main Street? A living museum of pastel brick, flagpoles, and an antique store with more Elvis memorabilia than Graceland's gift shop. Population? 2,000 on a good day. Median home price? $120,000. Rent? Almost laughably low. A one-bedroom will run you $500 if you're lucky, or just early. Crime? Near zero. The biggest offense in recent memory involves someone stealing peaches off a church tree. But what really locks Colquitt into the 70s isn't the decor. It's the mindset. Nobody's in a hurry. People wave. Strangers talk to each other at gas stations. The pharmacy still delivers, and the post office still matters. But here's the twist. Colquitt's also weirdly theatrical. This is the birthplace of Swamp Gravy, a community-based play that's been running since 1992, telling local stories with volunteer actors, and no sets fancier than what a high school drama club could rig up. It's campy, it's corny, and it's exactly what you think a 1970s small-town play would be. And it's a hit. The town draws over 20,000 tourists a year just for that. Tech? Forget it. The town website looks like it was built on Netscape. Local restaurants still use paper menus and cash registers with actual bells. If you order sweet tea, it comes in a mason jar. No branding, no Instagrammable garnish. Just ice, lemon, and diabetes. In 2024, the city council debated installing new LED streetlights. The decision? Voted down. Too bright. Too modern. Imagine stepping into a diner where the walls are lined with black and white photos. Your server calls you Hon, and the biggest news of the day is someone repainting their picket fence. Could you live here? Do you want to? Because Colquitt isn't pretending to be the past. It is the past, and they have the receipts. Number 5. Scottsboro, Alabama. In Scottsboro, Alabama, the 70s didn't just linger, they unpacked, lit a Marlboro, and opened a shop full of someone else's luggage. Literally. This town is home to the Unclaimed Baggage Center, a surreal megastore where all the lost suitcases from American airports go to die or get resold. Walk through the front doors and it's 1978 in stereo. Brown corduroy blazers, Polaroid cameras, velvet Elvis paintings, cassette players, VHS camcorders, everything Americans used to take on vacation before the internet ruined spontaneity. Now, Scottsboro isn't big, about 15,000 people, but it's the kind of town where every car still has a bumper sticker, and the local mall could be a time machine powered by Jell-O molds and waxy linoleum. Median home price? Just north of $160,000, a steal considering you're buying a one-way ticket to 1976. Crime? Below the state average. You're more likely to be hit by a falling lava lamp than robbed. Job market? Tourism, retail, light manufacturing, and yes, people do make full careers selling old luggage contents. We're talking iPods, vintage Ray-Bans, and occasionally wedding dresses. One woman found a Cartier watch here for $12. Someone else, a medieval sword. This place is a garage sale hosted by the ghost of Peter Frampton. But it's not just the store that's frozen in time. The entire town feels laminated. Dated road signs, gas stations with analog dials, motels with actual keys. The public library has wood paneling and smells like everyone's basement growing up. Even the mayor's office has a rotary phone for emergencies, and no one's being ironic. People wear overalls unironically. The soda machine outside City Hall only sells RC Cola and grape knee-high. And if you don't know what that is, you're not ready for Scottsboro. Tech Limited. A 2024 internet audit listed half the town as still on DSL, not because they have to, because they want to. Someone at the Chamber of Commerce told a reporter, if it worked in '79, it'll work now. And they weren't kidding. So here's the question. Would you live in a town where your neighbor might invite you over to watch Betamax movies, and the thrift store is nationally famous for selling boxer shorts from Heathrow? Because in Scottsboro, that's not quirky. That's Tuesday. And if you thought that was strange, the next town made the deliberate decision to stay in the past. Then they put it in the zoning laws. Number 4. Casey, Illinois. Casey, Illinois. Population 2,400, and roughly 147% of them are dedicated to keeping it exactly how it was when bell-bottoms were cool the first time. Casey is a town you don't accidentally visit. You either got lost on the way to somewhere bigger, or you meant to pull off Route 49 and stand next to the world's largest mailbox. Yes, that's real. They have the largest rocking chair, wind chimes, pitchfork, and golf tee. Why? Because some towns modernize. Casey went full Paul Bunyan on the concept of roadside kitsch and never looked back. Let's talk stats. Median home price? Around $140,000, a third of what it costs to live in a shoebox in Brooklyn. Cost of living? 21% below the national average. Crime? Practically fictional. You're more likely to be mugged by a squirrel than a human. The job market? Local retail, agriculture, tourism, and people whose full-time job is literally explaining how the mailbox got that big. But here's the kicker. Casey isn't just about oversized objects. The town itself feels like a diorama from 1973. Barbershops with striped poles and no scheduling apps. Churches with potlucks and flyers printed on mimeograph paper. Restaurants where the waitress calls you sugar, and the salad is iceberg, shredded cheddar, and a gallon of ranch. The town's Wi-Fi is patchy at best, and if you say streaming, someone might hand you a fishing pole. But don't mistake old-fashioned for backward. Casey has a weird kind of brilliance. A study by Southern Illinois University found the town's tourism model boosted local revenue by 37% over 5 years, all without a Starbucks or even a drive-through. It's old-school strategy. Make something weird, make it big, make people come stare at it. And it works. The post office still delivers by hand. The local newspaper is actually still printed, with puzzles, church news, and classifieds that read like time capsules. And that massive rocking chair? It gets repainted every spring, by hand, by the guy who made it in his barn. Would you live in a town where the main event is climbing into a mailbox big enough to fit your mortgage paperwork? Drop a yes or nah. Casey is what happens when a town looks around and decides, you know what? Progress is great, but we'd rather just scale up the weird stuff from the past and sell popcorn next to it. The result? One big, charming, bizarre photo op you might never leave. Number 3. New Harmony, Indiana. There's retro, there's preserved, and then there's New Harmony, Indiana, a town so untouched by modern life, it feels like someone cast a preservation spell and then left to go churn butter. Founded in the early 1800s as a socialist utopia, yes, seriously, New Harmony later settled into what can only be described as a living architectural thesis on why the 1970s might have been the last good idea. From the moment you step foot here, everything feels like it's been perfectly curated for a PBS special hosted by someone in corduroy and wireframes. Population, roughly 700. That's not a typo. It's a neighborhood, not a city. And yet somehow, there's a world-class art gallery, 2 labyrinths, one of hedges, one of prayer, and a 1960s-style coffee shop that still serves scones wrapped in wax paper. Median home price? Around $220,000. Not bad for a town where time forgot to charge you rent. Violent crime? Practically non-existent. Unless you count passive-aggressive notes about unpainted shutters. New Harmony doesn't just resist change, it politely declines and then hosts a lecture about it. You won't find chain stores. The grocery store has 6 aisles, and one of them is candles. The post office is in a federal building that hasn't been updated since Carter was in office. The local school still uses film projectors, as in actual reels. And the town's annual events, heritage walks, potluck picnics, Shakespeare in the courtyard, no irony, just full sincerity. Now here's the twist. New Harmony isn't poor, it's just committed. In 2024, Indiana University ran a study ranking it as one of the top 5 intentional preservation communities in the Midwest. Translation? They're doing this on purpose. It's not that New Harmony can't catch up, it just doesn't want to. The streets are cobblestone, the inns have rotary phones, and a local gallery once refused to install Wi-Fi because it would ruin the wood grain. Imagine this. You wake up to church bells, not alerts. You walk to a bookstore that doubles as a philosophy salon. Your barista asks if you've read Hegel before handing you a coffee brewed in a 1970s percolator. Would you stay? Could you survive where everything smells like beeswax and book glue and nobody knows what Slack is? Because in New Harmony, the 70s weren't paused. They were perfected. Number 2, Julian, California. Julian, California is the kind of town where it still smells like apple pie. Every gas pump squeaks like it's haunted, and you half expect a Ford Pinto to roll by blasting Fleetwood Mac. Tucked in the Cuyamaca Mountains east of San Diego, Julian is where Southern California goes when it wants to forget it's in the 21st century. And I don't mean quaint retro or Instagram vintage. I mean, you drive 70 minutes from a place with Teslas and TikTok influencers, and suddenly you're standing in a town square where someone's literally sweeping a wooden boardwalk, and a shopkeeper is arguing about Nixon-era tax policy like it just happened. Population, about 1,500. But when fall hits and the apple trees start showing off, that number balloons like a polyester jumpsuit. People flood in for the pies, the cider, the hand-dipped candles, and the chance to pretend it's still 1975, without trying to be ironic about it. Median home price? Roughly $525,000 in 2024, but what you're really buying is a piece of frozen Americana. Crime? Low. The sheriff's office is part-time. Your biggest threat is overeating at the bakery, or a deer walking into your porch like it owns the place. And let's talk commerce. Julian doesn't do chains. Not won't, doesn't. No Starbucks, no Subway, no Julian Applebee's. You'll get your coffee from someone named Martha, and she'll remember your order and probably ask about your grandma. The streets are lined with antique stores that look like someone hoarded Sears catalogs from 1971 and turned them into furniture. The bookstore only sells paperbacks. The candy store still makes fudge by hand. And the town's phone directory? Printed. On actual paper. With ads for saddle repair and typewriter service. You want internet? It exists, technically. But you'll load one email and suddenly you're baking bread, writing poetry, and whittling. It's that slow. And the people? Everyone waves. Everyone smiles. Even the guy who lives in a trailer behind the feed store and listens to AM radio police scanners for fun. Julian is what happens when a town goes, we could change, but why? It's warm, sweet, slightly unhinged in the best possible way. You'll leave smelling like cinnamon and questioning your whole lifestyle. Could you move there? Could you go analog? Ditch DoorDash for cider and gossip at the post office? Because in Julian, the 70s aren't retro. They're policy. Number 1. Centralia, Pennsylvania. Welcome to Centralia, Pennsylvania, where the 1970s didn't just stop time. They accidentally set it on fire. Literally. If you've never heard of this place, buckle up. Centralia is what happens when small-town America meets geological horror and decides to keep calm, carry on, and mow the lawn anyway. In 1962, a fire started in the coal mine beneath Centralia. It's still burning. As in, right now, in 2024, that underground coal fire is alive, smoldering, and potentially will be for the next 250 years. And yet, for decades, people stayed. Because that's what you did in the 70s. You didn't flee. You planted flowers on land that steamed in winter. Back then, Centralia had a population of 1,100, a church, a gas station, a dozen mom-and-pop stores, and a downtown that looked like a postcard from a Rust Belt dream. Then came the sinkholes, the toxic gases, the condemned signs. In 1984, Congress paid people to leave. Most did, but not everyone. As of 2024, 5 residents still live there. And they live like it's still 1979, because in many ways, it is. No new development, no new roads. The last house on Locust Avenue still has aluminum siding, a busted satellite dish, and a mailbox that probably gets more fan mail than bills. Median home price? Theoretically 0, but you couldn't buy a home here if you wanted to. The government seized the land under eminent domain. Crime? None, unless you count trespassing teenagers looking to film ghost hunting TikToks. Internet? Only if you hotspot from your soul. Jobs? None in town. You'll be commuting to Ashland or Mount Carmel for a paycheck, if you don't mind dodging cracked asphalt and gas vents. Now let's talk vibes. Centralia doesn't feel like a town. It feels like a memory refusing to collapse. Graffiti highway. The church that still holds mass while the ground hisses underneath. The smell of sulfur, the breeze that feels like it's been cooked. It's eerie, it's apocalyptic, and somehow, it's still beautiful. The remaining homes are surrounded by trees and silence. One resident grows tomatoes, another mows the lawn with military precision. The town doesn't want visitors, but they come anyway. Drawn by the surreal poetry of a place where the 70s refused to end and the earth literally rebelled. Could you live here? In a town that looks like time stopped, God sighed, and nobody flinched? Because Centralia didn't just press pause on the 70s, it burned the stop button. So there you have it. 10 U.S. towns that didn't just resist modern life, they straight up ghosted it. No apps, no rush, no overpriced brunch where the toast has a backstory, just rotary phones, cash registers that go ding, and parades that still start with a prayer and end with a pie auction. Here's the crazy part. These towns aren't dying. They're not abandoned. They're not fake movie sets. They're just living on a different timeline. One where milk is still delivered, neighbors still wave, and your porch is more important than your Instagram. In a country addicted to updates, these places hit later and meant it. And maybe they're onto something, because while we're over here drowning in screen time, side hustles, and $5 notifications from apps we forgot we downloaded, there are Americans out there paying $700 in rent, getting handwritten receipts, and sleeping just fine without knowing what Wi-Fi speed they have. So ask yourself, could you do it? Could you unplug from the algorithm and plug into a town where nothing changes and nobody wants it to? Drop a, "Yes, Max, give me the weird," in the comments if you could. Or a, "Nope, I need DoorDash and 5G or I'll combust." Either way, you just got a front row seat to an America that most people forgot existed. Like this video if you secretly want a milkman. Subscribe so you don't end up living in a condo where the lobby smells like Axe body spray and regret. And remember, the past isn't always behind us. Sometimes it's just waiting off Route 66 with a working jukebox and a meatloaf special. Stay weird, stay curious. See you next time.